him, and I get excited when I see Landorus. When I spent a whole however many years looking at Landorus every game, now I'm happy to see his beautiful face.
I know. It's so weird, too. I'm sure that, like, next year when we move on to whatever the next format's going to be, away from the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon games, hopefully, and we say goodbye to Incineroar for a little bit, it'll be the same thing. It'll be like, oh my god, I missed you so much. Yeah. But for now, again, looks like Incineroar is at least a common denominator between these two teams.
All right, so Preston Gadling and Jeremy Gross, both players are 6-1. Whoever wins will move on to Top Cut tomorrow here in Dallas. Preston has Yveltal, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Amoonguss, Landorus, Therian, and Xerneas. And Jeremy, as he locks in real quickly, Groudon, Yveltal, Venusaur, Tapu Koko, Stakataka, and Incineroar.
I like Jeremy's team. I think we've seen it a few times today, so I don't want to talk about it as much. You know, it seems like it's a really common team that's showing up, sort of the answer to almost the Scarf Kyogre archetype that we used to see a lot in Sun, and still are seeing a decent amount now. Preston's team, on the other hand, has a Pokemon that I think is really fun to play with. You know, well, they both have the Yveltal, but I think Preston's set up a little bit more to support it better, and it, interestingly enough, it looks like Jeremy's going to be the first person to get that Pokemon out on the field.
Yep, Tapu Roar is the lead for Preston as he's the bottom of your screen. And on top, Jeremy Gross has Yveltal and Tapu Koko. Obviously, the Tapu Fini is slower than Tapu Koko, so we will have missing on the field, so we can't have any statusing or anything for grounded Pokemon for the next 5 turns. Intimidate probably only affecting the Yveltal, but sometimes even through an Intimidate, a knockoff still does a lot of damage.
And some Yveltal, you know, won't hit on the physical side of damage at all, and will use something like Oblivion Wing and Snarl, and then even Foul Play to sort of avoid the Intimidate on it altogether.
Tapu Fini will switch out into the Landorus Therian here, so another Intimidate here. We have 2 of the legendaries from VGC18 on his side in Incineroar and Lando. A Fake Out will stop the Yveltal this turn, and the electric attack into the Landorus is obviously immune.
I think that, yeah, and that's why that switch was made. I don't think that Preston necessarily needs the second Intimidate down on that Yveltal, again, because it's most likely a specially attacking Pokemon. I think he wants to set it up so that this Landorus Therian can use something like a Rock Slide, which I think everybody remembers from the past.
Rock Slide, you say?
I know, to do super effective damage to that Yveltal, or maybe even try and flinch that Tapu Koko if it's holding something like a Choice Scarf to be faster.
Tapu Koko will protect here, doesn't want to eat an Earthquake. Landorus also protecting, so that shows it is not Choice Scarf or Choice Locked in any way. Foul Play from the Yveltal will go into the Protect from the Landorus, and then Xerneas switched in for free.
Yeah, so those Intimidates don't matter on that Yveltal, so
right.
I think Preston probably going to stop switching things around. I like that Protect from his Landorus that turn. I think he was just trying to scope the field out a little bit. I'm more curious about if he's going to attempt to set up that Xerneas right now. Judging by the fact that he just cycled in his Incineroar again, probably going to Protect and try and wait to go for that Fake Out and Geomancy combination. But that's going to give Jeremy a lot of time. You know, he does have a Tapu Koko on the field. It could deal some nice damage to that Incineroar and that Yveltal as well if he called the switch.
Xerneas does protect here, so we got that first part right. And now here's the first Z move of the set. It is Gigavolt Havoc from the Tapu Fini. Of course, it is out of terrain, so it is not doing the optimal amount of damage that Koko would prefer, but it still is very strong.
It is going to be very strong, but if it attacked into that protecting Xerneas, it's not going to do a lot of damage at all. And it does. This is fortunate. I mean, we've touched on this before in past rounds. This Z move is really Tapu Koko's best way to knock out his Xerneas before it's able to attack. But in this case, it just doesn't take any damage at all, and Foul Play does nothing as well because that Incineroar resists it.
Right, and now this is that Fake Out Geomancy turn you were talking about, and it seems as if there's nothing really Jeremy can do to stop this from Preston.
I mean, Tapu Koko does get access to taunt if it wants to. I don't think it has it, judging by this switch. If anything, I would expect Jeremy to just hope that this Stakataka, which he just revealed to us, is able to knock out the Xerneas after this turn.
Right, because it gets that, obviously Stakataka is so slow already with Gyro Ball, but now that that speed differential is even bigger now that Xerneas has used its Geomancy, increasing its speed, special attack, and special defense by 2 stages each. The Yveltal also does not want to take a Moonblast here, so that really, it's a Pokemon that is being threatened. We kind of have like a triangle going on with Xerneas, Stakataka, and Yveltal, and then Incineroar just hanging out, fake outing and intimidating.
Yeah, Incineroar is not really threatened here. I'm curious if we're going to learn a little bit more about the Stakataka, or excuse me, the Yveltal's item this turn. Didn't go for a Protect and was able to hold on through the Dazzling Gleam. That Yveltal is definitely holding the Assault Vest item. Yeah,
that's an absolute giveaway, since Yveltal's biggest bane in the world is a +2 Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam from Xerneas. So it hangs on, does connect Snarl on both of Preston's Pokemon, so that will lower the special attack to +1. And a low kick from Incineroar, super effective, 4 times super effective into Stakataka, taking it down. That is a move that you would more often see in 2018. It's not as prominent in 2019, but it really is helping out Preston here in this match, and I'm sure that's probably helped prevail him to some wins earlier on in Swiss.
Oh, without a doubt, and I think it's really good preparation on his part. You know, we've seen this Groudon-Yveltal combination with the same support Pokemon multiple throughout this tournament. It's most likely he saw this, you know, online when he was preparing on Battle Spot, for example, and knew that, okay, well, if Stakataka gets up against my Xerneas, I really need something to stop it. And in his case, low kick was the answer.
And Landorus will switch in for the Incineroar. So I guess we can have our first official rotating door of Intimidates, or revolving door of Intimidates. Yes,
there we go.
It's back. We have the double Intimidates, just keep cycling back and forth.
I don't think it ever left, honestly.
Oh, Sucker Punch from Yveltal will fail. He tried to just get a little bit of damage off before he went down, but Xerneas protected instead. And this Precipice Blades goes into Protect and a Flying-type Pokemon and Landorus. So really no offensive pressure. Like, look, Xerneas' damage is pretty much the only damage that Preston's taken all game.
Yeah, and with that Groudon already intimidated once and potentially could be intimidated again by Preston, I don't think that Precipice Blades, barring the critical hit, is really going to do much to make a difference on this Xerneas. I think Preston has really locked in the game for himself. I'm curious to see this Protect from the Groudon. It's possible that Jeremy's just trying to scout for a little more information from Preston to go into Game 2. But unless Jeremy has like some sort of hidden tech somewhere, I think this Xerneas is free to sweep the game.
I believe as Yveltal gets knocked out, the Yveltal was minus either 4 or 5 in his special attack. And I think he was lowered stats of attack than the amount of damage it did to, I think, did like 2 damage to Xerneas. That's how low it was. But we do have a Z move reveal here from Landorus in Game 1, Tectonic Rage. This Groundium Z will go into the Groudon here. I don't know if it's going to be enough for a knockout from full, probably not.
And
but that is a nice thing.
Well.
That's a nice thing for Jeremy to know. Oh, right, he did protect. That's right.
Yeah, and that's really important here. I mean, like you were saying, though, it is great for Jeremy to know that that's the Pokemon that has the Z move on Preston's team, because if you look at it, there's really nothing else that could carry it, honestly.
Right.
So it's something for him to keep in mind that Tapu Koko, I think, has to play a little bit differently, knowing that Preston does have that Z move on his side, so that he doesn't have to worry about necessarily earthquaking his own Pokemon. But for now, again, Xerneas is here on the field, definitely scary, and I like the forfeit there from Jeremy. I think that any more information he gave up at that point would disadvantage him going into Game 2.
Yeah, it's really hard to see how Jeremy's combination of Groudon and Koko would have had a great way of dealing with Landorus. Obviously, maybe could have hit the Xerneas, but kind of blowing your Z move into a protected Xerneas didn't help that much either.
No.
And Preston was just in a commanding position the whole game. He was taking the lead, and I think Jeremy has to show some initiative here in Game 2, understanding that, you know, the protect the Zern comps that so many players run, you know, maybe lead Stakataka or lead something, maybe his own Incineroar with Fake Out, a way to stop the Geomancy from activating.
You have to remember, though, all it takes is for Preston to lead the Incineroar and the Xerneas together, and even with the Stakataka on the field, it's going to get a low kick and some chip damage from that Dazzling Gleam, and that most likely will be able to knock it out. You know, knowing how Yveltal plays, especially in this matchup against a Geomancy Xerneas, I think he needs to make sure that he's able to stack those snarls on that Xerneas early on, so then it doesn't do the boosted damage. But then you have to wonder, like, well, how do I give Yveltal that freedom to move around like that? And, you know, looking at Preston's lead, you know, this Tapu Fini can certainly deal a lot of damage to that Yveltal if he decided to bring it. And it also sets up Misty Terrain. If you thought maybe the Groudon Venusaur combination could be another way out of the Xerneas setup, that's not going to be an option.
Yep, the Yveltal Incineroar and then Incineroar Tapu Fini. I almost kind of forgot Tapu Fini played because turn one he just switched it out, and that's good for Preston because when he's in the lead, he doesn't reveal any tech on the Tapu Fini. It's one of those Pokemon that can, you know, run 5, 6, 7 different types of move coverage on it, so he gets to keep that information private until this match when he needs to reveal it.
And I really like how Tapu Fini, I think it's being used here mostly as an instant safeguard, I think, rather than like an offensive or a defensive option. I think he's just using it to ensure that no matter what, he'll have that Misty Terrain up on the field, so he doesn't have to worry about Venusaur going for sleep powders immediately as he starts switching things around. At least if the terrain is removed, you know, it's either going to be in 5 turns or it's going to be because the Tapu Koko makes an appearance, which I think would be favorable for him no matter what.
So Groudon will switch into the Tapu Koko slot here, setting up the Sun thanks to its Drought ability, and a fake out from Preston's Incineroar into Jeremy's Incineroar, meaning there is no chance at a fake out there, and the Nature's Madness will take half of Groudon's HP, bringing him down to what looks like 51% almost, since he didn't go into the yellow. But Jeremy did not go for a fake out there, so I don't know if he went for, you know, roar or a knockoff or something like that, but that shows he was not trying to play the fake out speed ties.
Yeah, I like the idea of a knockoff there. I think that might have been really helpful if he can remove the berry from the Incineroar, because then he can just slowly start whittling it down. Because if there is that Stakataka in the back, that Incineroar is the thing that he should be afraid of. But, you know, he also just revealed the Landorus as well, so I'm not really sure how Jeremy sort of plays his way out of this. I think I would have liked to see that Venusaur, honestly, or at least something that can hit these Pokemon for super effective damage and not worry about being intimidated into oblivion.
Groudon is intimidated now. I was going to say he was finally at neutral, and then the Landorus switched in, so it did pretty much half to Preston's Incineroar. And now that's going to U-turn out into either Tapu Fini or Preston's going to have to reveal his 4th Pokemon here. But really all that means is that all it means by him switching out now is that next turn Incineroar is going to switch back in for another Intimidate into the Landorus slot, or whoever comes in, which is he's revealing his 4th Pokemon, Xerneas.
I mean, if Preston decides to get a little bit greedy next turn, he could just go instantly for the Geomancy, because, you know, he can't be faked out, and it's either going to be that Yveltal, which we already saw earlier in the game, or whatever Jeremy brought as his 4th Pokemon. If he has the Venusaur, now would be a great time to reveal it. If he brought the Stakataka, now would be the turn to send it in. And there's the adjustment. There's that Venusaur, and I think he has to target down that Xerneas. I don't know if he has an option to sort of play it risky. Yeah,
you can't take the risk. Even if he protects into it, okay, that stinks that you wasted your turn. But what you did was stop Geomancy from going up, so it still does work out.
But then you have to wonder about how this Groudon and this Incineroar are going to interact. And, you know, I don't think Groudon can take any attacks at all from the Landorus right now.
Oh, Sleep Powder from Landorus, because Landorus is a flying Pokemon, so he's unaffected by the Misty Terrain, so that will put him to sleep. And now Xerneas is able to Geomancy, does not eat a Sludge Bomb for its troubles, still at full HP as of right now, except for if the Groudon wants to go for a Fire Punch or a Precipice Blades, but he is intimidated. It is at -1, so it's not, you know, going to be doing as much as Jeremy would like here. So the last one to move here will be the Groudon, as the Landorus has to take that first turn of sleep. And a Sword Dance from Groudon. So he's now +1, but he's about to be back to neutral when the Incineroar switches in next turn.
I know, and that's really unfortunate too, because that Groudon's taking so much damage. I think by the time that it's going to be able to get the 2 attacks in, assuming an Intimidate, that it needs to knock out this Xerneas, that Xerneas is going to be able to knock it out. So maybe this Venusaur can do something with the help of a Sludge Bomb, and that'll be enough damage to remove the Xerneas from the field, but instead it looks like the Dazzle is going to be enough to get that knockout.
Yep, Dazzling Gleam +2 does take down the Groudon, even as a spread attack. And a Sludge Bomb almost seems like one turn too late, as now he cannot break through that boosted special defense stat. Landorus is now staying asleep for a second turn and is, likely to wake up next turn, but of course it is not guaranteed.
Yeah, and that was a really tough decision for Jeremy. I think he had to decide, which threat he was more afraid of. And I think he prioritized the Landorus, knowing that it had that Z move and it had the ability to, remove the Groudon for the field. Whereas with the Xerneas, it really was going to come down to whether or not the Geomancy was successful, and maybe it's a damage roll. We don't really know much about this Groudon, and whether or not that was a potential for it to survive after the Geomancy. Unfortunately for him, I don't think there was a good answer or there was a way out. This is a really tough matchup for him because Preston is doing an amazing job of just keeping that Intimidate pressure on the field. Except for now
constant.
where he doesn't need it. Yeah. I think right now he benefits from either this Landorus waking up and going for a Z move or getting knocked out, and then he sends in the Intimidate user.
Yeah, right. So Landorus is going to be a fake out, so even if he does wake up, which he doesn't hear, it didn't matter since he wasn't going to attack anyway. And that Sludge Bomb from the Venusaur went in to protect also, so another null turn. That was the 5th turn of the battle, so Misty Terrain has went away, and now the Venusaur can try to go for a Sleep Powder onto it, but I just don't know if it'll stick around long enough from a Moonblast and potential, other attack.
I don't know. It looks like
the switching, so no Sleep Powder.
Yeah, Preston's just playing everything as safe as possible, making sure that Misty Terrain remains on the field. And even if Jeremy calls this and goes for some kind of attack, it's possible this Venusaur might not even stick around.
No, yeah, can't even endure the resisted Moonblast there because of the power of Geomancy. And a Flare Blitz from the Incineroar into the Xerneas is not going to be enough. Doesn't even bring it down into the red here. So Preston just, playing a step above, kind of at like, you have the paint by numbers. He's like battle by numbers in this spot. Like, it's like, okay, Groudon's in, switch in, Intimidate. Oh, okay, protect. Like, he's not even having to read here. That's how ahead he is.
And I feel bad for Jeremy, too, because I think
this is a tough matchup.
It's a tough matchup, and I don't think he's respecting the Xerneas as much as he should be. I think that he had a couple of turns there where he probably could have been a bit more aggressive in regards to targeting that Xerneas, even though Preston was doing a really good job of, cycling the Intimidates and keeping the offensive pressure up. But unfortunately, it's kind of how the cookie crumbles. Like, sometimes when you have these teams that are just so well supported for Pokemon like Xerneas, even if you do, have a couple outs, you have to play it perfectly. And after 8 rounds of Pokemon, the mental fatigue is huge. So
it's tough.
It's very tough. And if I had to guess, knowing this metagame, knowing this format, this is probably at least the 4th or 5th time he's had to play a game like that, where his opponent was like, okay, I have a Xerneas. I want it to do Xerneas things. Let me protect it.
And in those other matches, he was able to prevail.
Oh, yeah, of course. He was X and 1 going into this round. And, I hope that he's one of our X and 2s who earns championship points from this event. But it's just very tough, very tough. So, very well played to Jeremy. I think that he really gave it a good shot. And unfortunately for him, his team just didn't have like the 5 Xerneas counters you need in order to beat a team like that.
He was also not ready for Landorus. And let's be real, I'm not ready. I'm not willing or ready for Landorus to be back in the metagame right now.
I was going to say, were you ready for Landorus though the first time around? Or no?
No, I was not. But I guess that was my takeaway from this match, is that Landorus is back. And I was actually speaking with players outside. There's been a number of Landorus doing well here today. And they're like, he actually fills a niche in the metagame that is pretty solid. So I think that is interesting. That why do you need Landorus? You got other ground types. You got all these legends that have better stats than it does. And it's like he still is an intimidating ground flying type with great attacks and a Z move available. Like, he's just perfect.
Yeah, well, let's take a quick break so we can hear from Preston about his win and how he feels about locking his spot into Top Cut. We'll be right back.